Okay.
Good morning. This is Nancy Barbie. I'm here with What's Your IQ? What's Your Impact Quotient? And my guest this morning is Ralph Zuke. He's the district governor in District 6060 in the St. Louis area. And Ralph has a interesting story about polio fundraising. Good morning, Ralph. How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Yeah. So I met Ralph in Calgary. Well, actually, I followed him uh, when we were driving across country. We followed him, sort of went zigzagged and went along his route too. But he has he rides a bicycle, but he does something odd with it. Ralph, tell us a little bit about your bicycle travels and how that got started and um and why you're pulling something. Why are you doing that?
So it all started back in 2017 when I'd been in Rotary 11 years at that point. And I'd read an article, I think in Rotarian magazine, saying that that year we were at 22 cases worldwide. And I was shocked by that because the last time I had really looked, it was still just south of 1,000. And being a former health education teacher, there's some things about when you're trying to eradicate diseases and stuff that I know about. One is that final push is always probably the hardest push.
Yeah.
Besides the start, the finish is the hard part. And I knew that by that time the initiative that Rotary had set out, people were getting kind of burnt out because it was almost 30 years of it at that point, and it was kind of rough. And so I decided I needed to come up with a way to sort of re-energize people and let them know that, look, we still have a goal to finish up. We made a promise. Let's finish it. And also during that year, I was getting ready to serve as president of the Fairview Heights Rotary Club for I think, second and third time. We knew we were doing a 2-year term for that one. So the outgoing president said, hey, what's going to be your focus for your year? And I got to thinking about it, and I was like, I think we're going to circle back around. For a long time, I'd been doing water, and I said we're going to circle back to polio because we need to finish this up.
Hmm.
And she goes, well, what are you going to do for that? And I said, no, maybe what I'm going to do is ride my bike to Toronto, which is where they were going to have the international conference. And she was like, well, that's good, but like, what's going to be the hook? And I said, well, the hook is going to be that I'm going to ride with a Barcalounger rickshaw behind me the entire way.
Orca
So,
lounger.
so Barcalounger it was a brand that made lounge chairs. Think of Lazy Boy, which is more people are more familiar with now. Think of it as a Lazy Boy chair, but Lazy Boy doesn't roll off the tongue as nicely as Barcalounger rickshaw does.
True.
And we designed it to look like a 1952 Barcalounger rickshaw or Barcalounger, turned it into a rickshaw. Um, and when I did the ride, I thought, okay, it'll be kind of clever. People, you'll get a few people out. But what I found was it was an amazing hook. Uh, you can't ride by somebody and have them see this without them wanting to stop you and ask you questions because they're like, what is going on? And so it ended up that what I thought would be an okay way to do it ended up being a really phenomenal
Wow.
hook. And that's what got us out to, the press would come out. People literally would drive up to me while I was riding and start asking questions, riding next to me. This is, by the way, my resident cat who really likes to sit up on my shoulders. Um, likes to they would just pull up out of nowhere and start to
Wow.
talk to me, and I would get them into the chair, and once they're in the chair, that's where I also had the um, sort of a captive audience at that point, because once you're in the chair you can't get out until I stop, because
True.
you're and you know this, you were in the new one and it's the same as the old one was in that regard. And so that allows me, a few minutes to tell them about Rotary and polio and the effect that Rotary has had on polio, which most people when they hear that story, they're just blown away by it, and I'm still always just shocked that it's not a story that's more widely told at this point because it is truly a phenomenal story. So,
Absolutely. Well, so that was your first ride.
mhm.
How many miles is that from where you are to Toronto? It seems like that's a long way.
It was supposed to be about 800 miles. I lost about 100 miles because I got injured. I pulled a hamstring um, during that ride. In fact, I was told by one doctor there was no way I was ever going to finish that ride. That I would need 6 weeks to recover. And uh, sheer will, I was able to get back on the bike 3 days later and finish that ride. And I refuse to let that stop me. Um, the worst part was it was a self-inflicted injury. I had ridden, I think 5 days. I'd done, I don't know, 250 miles with the rickshaw, and the rickshaw weighs 115 pounds, so this is a pretty heavy apparatus.
Wow.
And after 5 days, I was at a house that they were putting me up, or some Rotarians, and they lived on a lake and they had a boat, and we went out on the boat, and at some point I was like, wow, I haven't water skied in forever. So we went water skiing, and I pulled a hamstring.
Oh,
It's by far the worst I've ever pulled a hamstring. So I could barely walk the next day. And uh, we did a lot of hot tub, massage therapy, electrotherapy, and 3 days later I got on. But I did lose about 100 miles. So that ride, I actually ended up riding 702 miles of
still quite a
the
distance.
yeah. I mean, I was still happy with it. It was very successful in that when I do these rides, I have three goals. I want to educate people um, about polio, educate them about Rotary, and be sort of a goodwill ambassador, and then also raise funds. And that one, I felt like we had a real good success on that whole ride. All three of those came together real well.
Well, since that time, you have ridden to other uh, international conventions. Now, of course, the ones that are outside of the United States, that's a little difficult to do. But there have been several in the United States. What other ones have you ridden to?
Well, I did Houston in 22, and then I just did Calgary in 25.
Wow.
And Houston ended up being 904 miles, and Calgary, we had scheduled to do 2,250 miles in that one, but due to some weather conditions and some very not safe road conditions that we decided to bypass, it ended up being at 1,550 miles. But I figured that still worked out pretty well.
Now let's go back to along the way. So you're
Hmm.
pulling this rickshaw, and of course you're raising awareness and educating people. Tell me some of the pitfalls that happen along the way. I mean, you certainly the weather does not cooperate with you every step of the way. And where do you stay? I mean, do you stay along the road or do you get hotel? What do you tell me a little bit about the
Okay.
logistics going across country?
Well, the staying is the easy part. I have a really good team around me, and my logistics guy, Chad Baker, who's part of my club, Chad's phenomenal. What he does is I give him my course, and then he starts reaching out to district governors, and eventually, usually, we get to clubs and to individual members who then put us up almost every night, a Rotary club, whether it's a member putting us up in their house, or sometimes the club will say, hey, we don't have anyone who can put you up, but as a club, we're going to put you up in this hotel.
Nice.
And so about 95% of the time, we are staying in houses or hotels that Rotary clubs have done. The other 5% I take care of. And I will say that they do a much better job than I do. I have probably stayed in some of the worst hotels when I'm the one who has to get them. So, but that's what makes it special though, because I get to stay with Rotarians and meet. I'm meeting people the entire, you know, along the way. It's absolutely amazing. And what you find is Rotarians are first of all, um, they will do whatever they can do to help you, and it's so much appreciated. And the 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 hospitality I've been shown on these trips has just been top notch.
But
So
did you meet a lot of people that had no idea about polio that you really did educate a lot about our polio eradication efforts? I mean, what's the average out in the United States of people that really don't know about polio? I mean,
if they weren't a Rotarian, they had no idea polio was still a thing. I mean, really, it just comes down to that. Um, very, very few people realize that, it's still there. I mean, it's been out of the U.S. since I think the early 70s, I think is when we were certified polio free, out of sight, out of mind. And like I said, if they weren't a Rotarian, they had no idea. So it's just that, that's the reality of it is there's a lot of things there's a lot of clutter out there. We just went through COVID. We've had lots of other things to think about that here in the States, affect us a lot more. But when you start to tell them the story and you start to say, hey, once it's gone, it's gone. Then no one has to worry about it again. That would be great. But, people are always like, why does it matter to me? And you have to explain to them that, this is a disease that's uh, waterborne, and all it takes is somebody coming here who's got it, and it used to be the fear was going into public swimming pools,
right.
or I mean, I've heard lots of stories about people saying, yeah, we weren't allowed to go swimming in the summer because there were cases of polio in our area. And you start to tell them those stories, and they start to realize, okay, that could affect us, even though right now it's not, but it could. And you know, it would be a great thing to get this done. But I'm also going to circle back just a bit. You'd also asked about the challenges that we face when we're riding every day. Um, excuse me. Every day throws a different challenge at you. And again, having a good team of people around you helps a lot, but you never know what it's going to be. I mean, there was one morning on the way to Houston, we woke up, I think we were in Arkansas at that point, and we had stayed at a hotel, and we have, behind me when I'm riding, there's always my pickup truck with a trailer. So I have a SAG person with me at all times, and I'm never alone, which is nice, and that's all for safety reasons. Um, so we had pulled into this hotel, and because we have a trailer, we saw that somebody had a boat, and so they were also taking up a lot of space. So we pulled up next to them, figuring, that would be a good place, not take up too much more space. But then somebody in the middle of the night parked right in front of us. So we were trapped between this large boat and the building.
Oh,
So the next morning I get up, I go out, and I'm ready to ride. And my driver says, "Hey, we got a little problem." I go, "What's up?" And he goes, "Well, we're hemmed in." And so I'm like, "Oh, geez." So I go to the hotel manager. I'm like, "Hey, by any chance, do you know whose vehicle this is so that we can get it moved?" And he said, "Well, yeah, it's there's some road workers who are staying here long term because it's one of their vehicles, but they left early this morning. They're already gone."
oh,
And so I'm sort of like, well, I got to get out of here. And so we're trying to figure out what to do. And during the time that I'm sort of scratching my head, my driver gets out and he walks over to this van. It was a beat up old van. He pulls on the door handle and the thing opens. Well, it's unlocked. So we were kind of like, well, maybe we can put it in neutral if, well, it was funny. It was unlocked and had the keys in the ignition.
oh.
But there must have been a kill switch, which we couldn't find. And so finally I said, we can put it in neutral and push it out of our way so I can get out and push it back. So I asked the hotel manager, I'm like, do you mind if we do that? And he's like, I see nothing. I see nothing, He was like, so Tiggs got in. I pushed it forward 10, 15 feet, get the truck out. We go to push it back where it was and realize that it was a little bit uphill to get it back in.
Oh,
And and I didn't really want to be pushing it uphill, but if you pushed it farther downhill, there was another parking spot we could slide it right into. And so I hopped in to do that, and I look, and on the dashboard, now mind you, this is blazing hot sun already. On the dashboard is this box of condoms, and I'm a health teacher, and so I looked at those, and I'm thinking, that's absolutely the worst thing you could do with a box of condoms is put them in blazing hot sun. And I was thinking, do I leave a note saying, hey, we need to move your vehicle. Sorry about that, but maybe you should buy a new box. But then I was also thinking, we also did just break into your vehicle. We probably shouldn't do anything like that. But so I ended up not doing that. And a few months back, I was doing a talk and I was telling that story, and it occurred to me that that's been a little over 2.5 years ago. And I was thinking, man, somewhere in the middle of Arkansas, there could be this guy sitting on his couch, looking at a 2-year-old doing what 2-year-olds do, thinking, how did this happen? And I have the answer. So,
that's
you
a
know,
good.
you get things thrown at you every day. And another time we bent the tongue on the trailer. We're in a town that we had no idea, you know, who to call. But I had met a Rotarian the night before, so it was the only person I knew in town. I gave him a call, and sure enough, he was a defense attorney,
Uh,
and he said, I'm going to send my brother-in-law over to take a quick look to see how bad this is, because there's two different people we could send this to, and once he looks at it, we'll get you figured out. So I'm like, all right. So this guy shows up, looks at it, we call up Robin, and Robin goes, okay, yeah, take it over to this guy. He'll get you taken care of real quick because, well, he's got a lot of skeletons in the closet, so I'll make sure he takes good care of you. And we were out of that place in 1 hour. They had it
wow,
totally fixed. They had welded on a patch. It was amazing.
that's
Um, so you do. You have to take each challenge every day as it comes, and almost every day something will challenge you on these rides. But that's part of the fun. That's part of the adventure, and it is quite an adventure.
it sounds like it. It sounds like it. I met you in Calgary. Now, my colleague uh, in Polio Now coordinator Colleen Bonadonna had known about you for quite a number of years, and I think had spoken to you a couple of times. And so she was telling me about you. I said, I've got to meet this guy. I got to meet this guy. And so I did was fortunate enough to meet you and get to know you in Calgary and and we were there with Ramesh Ferris also and which polio was really focused on a lot in Calgary, and as it is in just in every convention. So that made it very, very nice. But you're right, people outside of Rotary have no idea. So kudos to you and congratulations to you for getting that awareness out there. And because when we talk to people, when I talk to people and ask in the audience how many of you understand Rotary, but how many of you understand about polio, and are there any in the audience that have polio? And did you find any people along the way that had polio that told you their story and what happened to them as children?
Many, many, many times. When they see, because I'm always wearing my End Polio Now shirt, and I mean that's sort of my standard uniform. When I do that ride, I have usually about 15 of those shirts with me, and I wear those every day, every hour. And what happens is when they hear what you're doing and they see the rickshaw, they tell you their story, and some of them are absolutely amazing. I'll never forget when I was doing the ride to Toronto. I had just finished doing a little talk in Ann Arbor. Ann Arbor has a very large Rotary Club, And afterwards, I'd said I would give people rides in the rickshaw outside, and they were collecting money towards the End Polio Now campaign. And this one gentleman walks up to me and he hands me a check and he goes, "I got to tell you, polio has directly affected my family." And he told me that his dad was a doctor who treated polio patients, and that in doing so, he ended up contracting polio and died from it, leaving his mom, a widow with 8 kids to raise. And it had severely affected his family. And so, you hear those stories and you realize this is preventable. This is 100% preventable at this point. There's
Right.
no reason we should ever have those stories again. And that I enjoy when people tell me their stories because that that's what sort of helps keep me focused and keeps me going. Because again, I know that every story I hear, maybe at the time that happened it wasn't preventable, but now it is, and we shouldn't have those ever again.
You're absolutely right.
So,
You're
you
absolutely
know, we have everything we need to finish this job.
exactly. And would tell me, you are creating awareness and education, but you're also fundraising too. Um,
Mhm.
Up to this point, how much money have you raised right on these rides?
Excuse me. I'd love to give you an exact number. The problem is that the first ride I know we raised 24,000 plus. The second ride we were trying a different format for raising money, and we found that it had some issues. We know we raised a good chunk of money. I would say probably somewhere in the 25,000 range. The problem was we weren't able to track it very well because a lot of people sent in, we had a QR code, but a lot of people sent in checks, and if they didn't send in checks with a number in the memo column that they needed, we didn't get credit. So I know that like there was a club in Louisiana that sent in $1,000 check, but they had done it before I had talked to them. So, I wasn't able to get that code in. So I would venture to say we're probably somewhere in the 75,000 range would be, I
Wow.
think that's a pretty safe number to go with. Um, I will say, however, the recently I was in Rotary Magazine, and there was a slight little minor detail that was messed up. It had said that I had raised 57 million, and actually what I told them was 57,000. So
Wow.
somehow that got a little excuse me messed up. However, what I've been asking people recently is that we have like a month between this edition and the next, and that instead of having them, have to print out some sort of correction, I said it would be really nice if we would just raise the other $56,943,000. So look between your seat cushions, maybe in your change thing in your car. Let's see if we can come up with that and just make it so they don't have to do that.
I
Um,
think we can
you
do
know,
it. I really think we can do it.
yeah, I think so. I think so. And I tell people when they ask me, like, wow, you raised 57 million. I'm like, look, if I had raised 57 million, I would have been on the front page. So, but no, it's a lot of fun. I get often asked, like, you put in a lot of work, and riding to Calgary was 7.5 weeks.
Yeah.
I'm an independent contractor, so when I'm not working, I don't get paid. Um, but I will say that, yeah, it's a challenge. I had 3 years to plan for Calgary. I knew I was doing Calgary as soon as I left Houston, and so I was able to figure out how to make the money work. Get a fairly good route to Calgary. It had a few issues. Um, again, those daily challenges.
Yeah.
Excuse me, but it, you know it it's worth it. Every time I do these rides, I have a renewed faith in humanity because I'm going through places where nobody knows me, and I'm always amazed at how willing they are to help me when I need it. There's times if you're on the side of the road and I might just be taking a snack break that people would stop and say, "Hey, are you okay? Do you need anything?" And that really does sort of just make you feel good about humanity again. In these kind of trying times that we're going through right now, I think that's really important.
That's
And
great to hear. That's good to hear because you're right. We don't advertise that enough that there are kind people, and there are people here in the United States that care about others, and we're so quick to judge and so quick to advertise how the terrible things that are happening, but there are good things happening too.
oh, I can say there's way, way more good than bad. And I get to see this when I do these rides all the time. And I know that these people who are stopping and doing that or helping in many different ways, we may not have the same political views. We may not have the same religious views. In fact, we probably, there's high likelihood we don't.
Right.
But we can look past all that and we can look at the things, that we do agree on and work on those. And I see that throughout Rotary. I see that when I do these rides. I'm a district governor this year. Part of my talk is talking about that. I know we're not comfortable talking about politics and religion in Rotary, and we shouldn't in general. I feel like that's we again should be looking past that. But I do mention in the that I'm working with a lot of Rotarians who, again, I know we have very different backgrounds, very different, where we're coming from, but we have a common goal. And I think that that's what binds us, and we do such a good job with that. I genuinely enjoy hanging out with Rotarians because I know that we have this common goal,
Right.
and it just it makes it work. I wish that we could export that to more people so that they could see it can be done.
Can be
You
done.
know,
Can be done. And you're right. Uh, there is a common thread that binds us all together in Rotary, and we have the same mindset, and it's all about humanitarian service. So you're absolutely right. What's your next ride? You have another one planned?
well, I keep telling people I'll have them planned until we hit zero for 3 years, and the next one it sounds like it would be Minneapolis, St. Paul. I guess that's in 3 years, I believe.
I think
I
so.
gotta look. That's going to be actually after Calgary. That's going to be a really simple ride. And then I think like either the next year or the year after that, Chicago, which is 300 miles from here, which is absolutely nothing to do. So I got to come up with I'm, I do a lot of different types of fundraising, not just the bike. Like recently, my club, we just did a drift tricycle race, adult drift tricycle race. And
Okay.
that was a lot of fun, and we sort of just did this one as it was this last weekend, sort of as a test of it, and we figured out okay what we did right, what we did wrong, adjust it. Now we're going to roll it out big time next spring as a fundraiser for our club. And then I'm also doing a district fundraiser, which involves uh, us wearing those big giant sumo wrestling outfits.
You were telling me about that. I need to know about that. I want to find out more about that.
That'll be in May, and here's the best part. That one's going to be pay-per-view. So if you make a $10 donation to Polio, we'll send you a code and you can watch it live or anytime you want to watch it. And but that one, it's going to be District 6510 versus District 6060 sumo wrestling night. And I'm buying the suits because I looked at some of the rental ones and they were, quite frankly, pretty disgusting looking. So I was like, I'll just buy new ones then, so we'll have good, clean ones to use. And I had somebody say, well, what if this is a one-off and you don't do it again? I said, well, we'll find other uses for the sumo suit. So I'm kind of kicking around the idea that maybe I need to do this ride to Chicago in a sumo suit.
Oh my goodness. And
So we'll see.
the
We have
heat.
time to think about
Oh, yeah, that would draw attention. Now that I mean, it's attention enough when when you're pulling the rickshaw, but to ride in a sumo suit, yeah, well, yeah, I'd pay to see that.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would.
Well,
But
well,
again, the idea is to find those hooks that people want to talk to you. And I've been pretty successful at doing those. And again, I clearly like talking to people, and we. It's easy when you have such a great story to tell. And again, what Rotary has done with polio up to this point even is a phenomenal story. But again, when we finish it, that's when it goes over the top.
Absolutely. Ralph, I can't thank you enough for what you're doing, and I love the rickshaw. I was able to sit in the rickshaw, and he rode me around in Calgary just a few minutes, and it was a lot of fun. And he drew a crowd in Calgary, and along with Ramesh, and drew a crowd there. And it is all about awareness, education, and yes, advocacy and fundraising. So thank you so much. I can't thank you enough for your ideas, your creativity. I'm anxious to hear more about the sumo wrestling. I love your idea, all of your ideas. I mean, Rotarians are known for creativity and known for their creative ideas. And so thank you so much for being with me today and talking about your ride. And I look forward to seeing you. I look forward to seeing you on the East Coast. Even there may not be a convention, but there might be some other things that ride across to the East Coast, and we'd love to host you here.
Like I gotta tell you, there is a pretty good chance I'll be in North Carolina sometime this spring.
All
So
right.
I'll give you more details on that later. But yeah, there's a good chance I've been asked to come out, and I was like, yeah, I haven't been to North Carolina in a while. It's a good time to head out.
Well, you must let me know exactly where you're going to be. I will come there wherever you are, and we'll have a.
What part of the state are you in? I'm trying to remember. Are
I'm
you
on
the
the
west?
I'm on the East Coast. I'm
Oh,
near.
you're on the East Coast. Okay. Okay.
If you're going to be here in the spring, the beach is kind of nice during that time. Just saying.
Yeah. Yeah. Except for y'all have jellyfish
Well,
in the spring.
we
I
can,
grew up on the East Coast, so I know it's like till July. I didn't go into the water until the jellyfish were starting to go away.
yeah, that is very true. That is very true. But we could manage something else. We have. But anyway,
Oh,
I just appreciate you coming this morning, and this is a early Saturday morning, and keep riding, and
I will
keep
until it's done.
yeah, until it's done. So thank you so much for being here, and this is Ralph Zuke in District 6060. He's the current sitting governor, and look for him in the Rotary magazine this month, and look for him on the highway. You never know where you might see him. Ralph, thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.